beautiful friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Bao. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any beauty tutorials. I will be showing you today how to cover up dark spots, hyperpigmentation, and melasma. Alright, let's just get started. Make sure the very first step is always to sculpt and shape your brows so that your face is framed. I am using the Benefits My Precisely eyebrow pencil here, just kind of shading in all of the sparse area. My sister really likes more of a thicker brow because thicker brows always make anybody look more youthful. So I'm just kind of reshaping, making sure that I keep that arch because that arch can really give your face a faux facelift. So we kept that arch there but made it a little more thick and then blending it out so that it doesn't look too harsh. Next up, we will be taking the Glossier Brow Flick in shade Black Brown and just kind of mimic some hair strokes into her brows here to make sure that it's a lot thicker and fuller. We're really trying to achieve this youthful, glowy look. Next up, take your favorite concealer and just really clean up that brow and just sharpen up that shape to make sure everything is neat and clean. I'm just using my P. Louise Shade 2 eye primer, but I double that as concealer. It's just so versatile. I love this product. It's very little goes a very long way and it's so pigmented and very easily blended. Next up, I will be taking the Boy Brow Pomade in shade Black. And you see here, I'm just brushing that in to make sure all the hairs are staying in place. The next up, I will be taking a loose translucent powder and just really set that primer in there, or concealer. Then I am taking this shade Teddy from the Nude palette. I love this palette. And just really carve out the outside of the eyes. If you notice, every time I do monolids, I always focus on the outer corner and just really carve up into that hollow area. And then just picking up that same Teddy shade and bringing it over to the other eye and just doing the same thing, blending and diffusing that outer corner to really enhance the eyes. You guessed it, still blending, still building up that transition shade before we move on to our next shade here. So next up, I am taking this shade Raw from the Huda palette again and just really focusing on the outer corner and making sure you build from the lash up. So always blend the most product at the lash and then diffuse upwards and into that little V corner of the eyes and into the hollows of the eyes. I always bring it into the inner corner of the brows because that's kind of where you can start creating more depth for monolid eyes. Here I'm just taking that same shade Raw and just applying the same technique to that eye. You'll see I'm going to keep picking up these colors and just really build up so that her eyes become more intense. She wanted a very dramatic look for this photo shoot. And by the way, make sure you are staying tuned for the next video. It will be a behind the scenes and a review of these photos. If you are not following me on Instagram already, the upper left corner here, then make sure you do because I did already post her photos on there. So next up, I am taking this darker purple shade called Tease and just really focusing on the little corners of her eyes there. Remember to always try to create depth when you're working with monolid eyes or Asian eyes in general. And here she's pointing to an area of her eye fold where no matter how much we try to blend out, the pigment is always really patchy there. So that eye was a challenge, but you know, we worked it out. I just kind of took the darker Tease shade and just kind of pack it in that area and then slightly blending it out. Because I noticed as I tried to blend it out on her left eye, it just kept getting patchier and patchier. So here I'm taking the Kevyn Aucoin Sensual Skin Concealer in shade SX9. And this is so pigmented and beautiful and just kind of really carving out just the inner corner. I don't want to go full on cut crease just because I feel that's too dramatic. So I just did that really little inner corner so that it really opens up her eyes here. Here I'm picking up this beautiful shimmer. It's a rose gold color. It's called Daydream. And just really filling that into the inner corner where I placed that concealer so that it will really brighten and open up that area of her eyes. The next and most important part is skin prep for any makeup routine. I won't go too much in depth here because the focus today is the makeup part and how to cover up dark spots and hyperpigmentation. So I will do a more in-depth video if you guys want me to. Let me know in the comments below, and I will go in depth with all the products that I use and my favorites and my least favorites too. The second most important part to cover up any pigmentation is to color correct and then conceal. So I'm taking this peachy shade from Laura Mercier, warming it up in my fingertips and then patting it over any areas that needs this coverage. Then I am taking the brush and just kind of apply more product on top of her dark spots here, or melasma. And then next up, I will be taking that Kevyn Aucoin Sensual Skin Concealer in a shade SX9. You know, this is my favorite concealer to use. Then I will just kind of pat that over those dark areas again to make sure everything is covered. And then y'all know that I love this foundation from Charlotte Tilbury. It is still my holy grail and my go-to for everything. So, and as I mentioned before too, when you want more full coverage, you pat that foundation in, and in areas where you need less coverage, you will buff it, so you go in circular motion. But I know that for myself and for my ladies who need more coverage, I always pat that foundation in, and then if needed, I would take a beauty blender later and just kind of go in the areas that look a little cakey and kind of soak up the rest of that foundation. So I will continue to, you know, just kind of cover her face up with the foundation. I know this looks a little scary right now, but trust the process. It will turn out. And make sure you blend down into that neck too, so that she doesn't look like she's wearing a mask. And then I am then taking the rest of that Kevyn Aucoin concealer corrector and just kind of like taking my concealer brush and patting in the areas where she needs more coverage, and then taking that foundation brush and just kind of patting around it so everything is nicely blended. So, you know, covering melasma and dark spots is a process, and it takes technique and it takes patience. And of course, you all know how much I love this new Patrick Ta cream and powder blush duo. I'm taking shade She Soleil, the cream, and just really kind of sculpting out her cheekbones to make her face look, you know, snatched. And just really blending that in and doing the same thing to the other eyes, around the temples. I noticed that when I do this process, it makes like the contour looks a lot more natural and not so harsh. Then I'm taking this cream macchiato from the Fenty line and really carving out her nose. And also remember to always go into the inner corners and beginning of that brow area too, so that you kind of create depth. Remember, we need depth for our eyes and our nose. It just makes everything so beautiful and just comes together so much better. Taking a smaller fluffy brush and picking up some loose translucent powder and just kind of really setting the under eye, the laugh lines, around the cheek and the lips area to make sure that this is set really good. I usually like to go over this area first, the areas that I know will crease, and set that shit really well, and then I'll go over later with like a bigger fluffy powder brush and then set the whole face with it. This way your makeup stays in place and it does not crease throughout the day. I'm taking the Kevyn Aucoin concealer and mixing it with her foundation shade just to lighten that pigment up a little bit, and then packing it on top of the dark areas where I see pigmentation peeking through. By doing this technique, we are ensuring that she has the most coverage. Then I'm taking the Patrick Ta blush, She Soleil, and just putting that onto the contours of her cheeks. I like to start a little bit before the apples and just kind of sweeping that up into the temple so that your face can look more lifted. And then doing the same thing to this other side. I love mixing blushes, so that I'm taking the She's Adorable from Patrick Ta as well. This one has more of like a shimmery highlight shade to it with some peachy tones to it, so I love layering this on top of like other blushes, so it kind of gives your face this really healthy glow. Using one of my favorite bronzers, the Hoola from Benefit, and just sweeping that along the jawline, the contours of the cheeks, up in the forehead and temples, to ensure that when we take pictures, we really chisel out that face so that she looks real snatched. I'm taking that same hula shade from Benefit and just sweeping that to the side of her nose, up into that little corner of her eyes to create more depth up there, and just really blending it into the eyebrows so that it gives that illusion of an elongated and taller nose. And don't forget to contour this little part underneath the nose. It kind of gives that nose a little like upturn and just really brings the whole look more together. Then I'm taking the translucent powder and just kind of blending that through so that there's no harsh lines. I'm taking Becca's highlighter in shade Vanilla Quartz. This is my all-time favorite highlighter. She is the OG of highlighters. And if you notice, I'm putting in the high points of her cheeks and then at the temple of her forehead and the corners of her chin, along with the tip of her nose bridge. I don't like to do a straight line down the nose. I just feel like it has more dimensions when you strategically place the highlight. And lastly, if you have dark pigmentation, you want to use a highlighter that has more of like whites in it, so that way it doesn't gray out that area where you have pigments. If you have hyperpigmentation on the high points of your cheeks, like my sister and I've noticed that when I've used highlighters that have more golds or bronze in there, it definitely grays out that area more. So I stick to more like that white gold or more the white highlighters. Then I'm taking my finishing powder from Charlotte Tilbury in shade 1 and just kind of sweeping that in the areas that needs more coverage or brightening. I usually put this under the eye, the laugh lines, clean up the contours and the blushes. And this is really good if you have textured skin as a finishing powder because it really blurs and smooths out your skin. And it looks amazing in photos and videos too. Yay, we're almost to the end of this video and this makeup tutorial. So lastly, I'm just taking my favorite lashes from Ardell, the Demi Wispies. This is so universal on everybody's eyes. It just gives the right drama, but not too much, and it just really enhances and opens up anybody's eyes and just really bring the eye makeup all together. Then I'm taking these last 2 shades from this palette and just smoking it out underneath the eyes so that all of that eye makeup just really blends in together and open up her eyes. Finally, we're at the last step, y'alls. I'm using a lip liner here by Charlotte Tilbury. It is her Pillow Talk #1, and just filling in her line, just overline just a little bit in areas where I feel like it needs to be more balanced out, and just kind of shading that in here. I'm taking these 2 shades and just mixing it from Danessa Myricks Nudist palette. I love her stuff. It's so versatile and it's so pigmented. She is a Black business owner, so definitely go and support her. And I'm just filling that in and then cleaning it up with foundation versus concealer. Finally, we are at the end. Just make sure you set your makeup with any setting spray of your choosing. I absolutely love the combination of the All Nighter and the Caudalie Beauty Elixir. And here is the before and after. Thank you so much for watching, and keep an eye out for the next behind the scenes video, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so I can continue to make these types of videos for you guys. Bye! She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her.